There's a moment in life when your silence says more than 1,000 perfectly crafted words. When someone lies about you, betrays you, or tries to provoke you into anger, every part of you wants to respond. You want to explain, to correct, to prove you're not who they think you are. But what if I told you the most powerful thing you can do in that moment is absolutely nothing? Not because you're weak, but because you've outgrown the need to react. The Buddha once taught that mastering your own mind is greater than winning 1,000 battles. And in today's noisy world, stillness isn't just strength, it's wisdom in action. In this video, we're diving deep into 7 moments where staying silent isn't just the wise choice, it's the one that allows karma to do its work. These aren't theories or abstract teachings, they're rooted in the real, raw moments of life where your peace is tested and your boundaries are crossed. We'll talk about betrayal, manipulation, disrespect, and that quiet pain of being taken for granted. But most importantly, we'll learn how silence, when chosen from clarity, becomes your loudest message. So if you've been struggling with how to respond when people hurt or misunderstand you, stay with me. Don't skip any part of this video, because every chapter builds toward a kind of strength that doesn't crumble under pressure. And if you appreciate what we're doing here, bringing the timeless wisdom of Buddha into everyday life, there's one simple, free way you can support this journey. Just tap that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. There's something uniquely painful about being misrepresented. Not just misunderstood, but deliberately twisted. When someone spreads a lie about you, especially when it comes from someone you trusted, the sting isn't just about the words, it's about the betrayal, the loss of control, and the helplessness that follows. Suddenly, your name is being dragged through conversations you're not even part of. You start imagining how many people heard it, believed it, repeated it, and the instinct, the very human reaction, is to fix it. You want to shout your truth from every rooftop to clear your name, to make it stop. But the deeper truth is, defending yourself isn't always the path to peace. In Buddhism, the Buddha often reminded his followers that the truth doesn't need to fight. It simply is. He said, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. That quote might sound poetic, but it's deeply practical. Lies are like shadows, loud at first, often faster than the truth, but they vanish when the light returns. Truth, on the other hand, moves slowly. It doesn't seek to prove. It waits to be revealed. So when someone lies about you and you stay silent, you're not being passive. You're trusting the natural law that governs all things: karma. Here's something most people won't tell you. When you rush to explain yourself, you often appear guilty, even if you're not. Think about it. The more passionately someone defends themselves, the more others start wondering, well, why are they trying so hard? It's a psychological trap. You think you're clarifying, but to the outside world, you're performing. And that performance can be misread. It's cruel, but common, because we live in a world where loudness is often mistaken for guilt and silence is misjudged as defeat. But that's only true if you believe that noise equals power. In Buddhist practice, one of the highest forms of strength is restraint. Not because you're afraid, but because you're free. Free from the need to prove yourself to people who were never listening to begin with. Free from the cycle of reaction that just drains your peace and multiplies your suffering. When the Buddha was falsely accused during his lifetime, and yes, even the enlightened one faced slander, he didn't argue, he didn't chase clarity, he simply lived his truth. Over time, the lies collapsed on their own because the foundation they stood on was hollow. There's a lesson in that for all of us. When someone lies about you, ask yourself, who am I trying to convince? The people who know you, they already trust you. The ones who believe the lie, they were looking for a reason to judge you anyway. The ones in between, they'll figure it out, not because you yelled louder, but because you stayed grounded. Let your consistency do the talking. Let your values speak louder than your words. That's what it means to live your truth without having to explain it. Let me share a moment that might stay with you. There was a man, let's call him Ravi, who worked in a quiet office, did his job well, and stayed kind to everyone. One day, a co-worker, out of jealousy, started spreading rumors that Ravi was manipulating others to get ahead. The whispers grew, people pulled away, and Ravi felt the pressure to defend himself. But he didn't. He just kept doing his work, stayed kind, stayed grounded. Weeks later, the co-worker made the same mistake with someone else, only this time they pushed back. The truth came out. Ravi's silence wasn't a weakness, it was patience. And in the end, his dignity was the only thing left standing. There's a certain kind of heartbreak that doesn't scream. It doesn't come with dramatic exits or loud confrontations. Instead, it's quiet. It creeps in slowly. One day, you just feel it, the shift. A friend you trusted, a partner you leaned on, someone you once believed in does something you never thought they would. They betray you. Maybe they talk behind your back, share your secrets, or choose someone else over you in a moment you needed them the most. And suddenly, you're standing in the rubble of a relationship that meant everything to you, asking yourself 1,000 questions you may never get answers to. The natural reaction is to confront, to ask why, to beg for honesty or closure. It's not about revenge, it's about understanding. You just want to know how someone who said they cared could hurt you like this. But here's where the deeper wisdom enters. The Buddha taught that clinging leads to suffering. And sometimes our greatest suffering doesn't come from what someone did. It comes from our need to make them explain it, to justify it, or to fix it. But people who betray you rarely see the damage the way you do. They've either made peace with their decision or buried their guilt so deep that they're not even aware of it anymore. And trying to pull truth from someone like that often reopens your own wounds more than it heals anything. Silence in these moments isn't weakness, it's protection. It's choosing your peace over their confusion. It's stepping away without needing to argue or prove anything. And I know that's hard. Because silence can feel like surrender, but it's not. Not when it's chosen with awareness. In Buddhism, there is a teaching called upekkha, equanimity. It means being at peace no matter what's happening around you. When someone betrays you, upekkha is the state that allows you to say, I see what you did, I feel what it caused, but I will not let it change who I am. Let me share something that makes this more real. Picture someone. Let's call her Maya. Maya had a best friend for years. They shared dreams, fears, late-night phone calls, and every milestone together. But one day, Maya found out her friend had been slowly poisoning her name behind her back, planting seeds of doubt in others, revealing personal things Maya had shared in confidence. At first, she wanted to confront her. She wrote a long message. She even rehearsed what she would say. But then she paused. She realized that the friend already knew what she'd done. She didn't need to be told. And Maya didn't need to perform her pain to get justice. So she deleted the message, walked away, and never looked back. And do you know what happened? That silence haunted the friend. Not because Maya punished her, but because she removed her energy without drama. That absence became the loudest consequence of all. Silence in these moments is the sound of your dignity rising, not to punish, not to wound back, but to protect your soul from more harm. You owe yourself that peace. There's something uniquely frustrating about dealing with insults. They come out of nowhere, sometimes dressed in sarcasm, sometimes disguised as a joke, and sometimes just brutally direct. And in that split second when someone throws a jab your way, your whole body tenses, your heart beats faster, your mind scrambles for the perfect comeback, and every part of you wants to respond. It feels personal. It feels unfair. And deep down, it feels like if you don't say something now, you're letting them win. But here's the truth that many overlook. Responding isn't always the victory we think it is. In fact, it can be the very trap that pulls you into a game you never agreed to play. When someone insults you, they're not offering constructive feedback. They're fishing for your reaction, fishing for control. Because the moment you take the bait, whether through anger, sarcasm, or even hurt, you've handed them something valuable, your peace. And peace, once disturbed, is difficult to reclaim. The Buddha spoke often about the power of restraint. He taught that just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, the wise are not shaken by blame or praise. That kind of inner stillness doesn't mean you're numb or indifferent. It means you've chosen clarity over chaos. It's easy to think that not responding makes you look weak, that if you don't defend yourself, people will think the insult is true. But silence is not agreement, it's self-possession. When you remain calm in the face of provocation, you're not ignoring the insult, you're dissolving its power. Think of it like a flame. Every reaction you give is like oxygen feeding the fire. But if you offer stillness instead, no spark, no fuel, the fire dies on its own. The person who tried to get under your skin is left with their own discomfort, and you walk away with your dignity untouched. I want to share a story here, one that really brings this to life. There was a man, we'll call him Ravi. He was calm by nature, known for his humility and focus. One day at a social gathering, someone, clearly insecure, made a joke at Ravi's expense. It wasn't just a random comment, it was calculated, a direct hit meant to embarrass him in front of others. People turned, waiting to see how he'd respond. Ravi simply smiled, took a breath and continued his conversation as if nothing had been said. No comeback, no anger, just presence. And you know what happened? The room shifted. The man who made the insult suddenly looked small, petty and insecure. Ravi didn't win the argument, he rose above it entirely. That's the beauty of mindful silence. It's not passive, it's intentional. It says, I know who I am, I don't need to fight to protect that, and that's where true strength lives. The Buddha taught that mastering yourself is the highest form of power. Not your title, not your words, not your ability to argue your way out of a situation, but your ability to hold your peace when everything around you is trying to disturb it. The next time someone throws shade your way, remember not every battle is yours to fight. And sometimes the strongest move is to stand tall, say nothing, and let the emptiness of their words speak for itself. Some people are experts at turning every situation into a stage. They don't want to resolve anything, they want an audience. They twist events, manipulate facts, and position themselves as the victim, even when they're the ones who caused the harm. And if you've ever tried reasoning with someone like that, you know how draining it is. You walk away feeling like the villain, even though all you did was try to speak the truth. It's a deeply frustrating experience, and the more you try to clarify things, the more it feels like you're sinking into a trap you didn't even set. The Buddha spoke often about the dangers of ego and the illusions it creates. One of those illusions is the need to constantly explain ourselves to people who are already committed to misunderstanding us. These kinds of individuals don't want clarity, they want control. And the easiest way for them to gain that control is by casting themselves as the wounded party. Once they put on the mask of the victim, every attempt you make to correct the record is seen as aggression. You become the one who's overreacting. They become the poor soul just trying to defend themselves. But here's the truth. When someone is playing the victim to avoid accountability, silence is often your strongest move. Responding only feeds their narrative. They want your energy. They want your frustration. They want to see you unravel because then they can say, "See? Look how unreasonable they are." It's a performance and they are counting on you to play the part of the enemy. But when you don't take the bait, when you remain calm, centered and silent, it throws off the entire script. Suddenly, they're left on stage with no one to perform against. That's where their power begins to crumble. Let me share something rooted in Buddhist wisdom. When you choose stillness over reaction, you're not suppressing your feelings, you're mastering them. Buddha never taught us to be passive. He taught us to be awake. And being awake means knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the heavy lifting. When someone distorts the truth and plays the victim, speaking more often muddies the water. But silence, it has clarity. It invites reflection. It allows the people watching, not just the one accusing, to notice the pattern. Because people like this rarely stop at one performance. They go from story to story, crisis to crisis, casting new villains in every chapter. And over time, the pattern becomes too loud to ignore. I once knew someone, we'll call her Mira, who worked with a person just like this. No matter what happened at the office, this co-worker found a way to make herself the victim. If a decision didn't go her way, she cried. If someone pointed out a mistake, she turned it into a personal attack. Mira tried everything. Emails, calm conversations, even bringing facts to meetings, but it always backfired. Eventually, Mira stopped explaining. She did her work, kept her peace, and refused to participate in the drama. And slowly, people around her began to see the truth. Not because Mira shouted it, but because she didn't. Her silence gave space for karma to work. Sometimes it starts with something small, missing a call, a message left on read, or a promise broken quietly. Other times, it's more obvious. You're always the one reaching out, making plans, remembering important dates. You show up not because it's required, but because you care. And over time, without realizing it, that care turns into a pattern, a one-sided rhythm where you give more than you receive. At first, you don't notice. You tell yourself they're just busy. You excuse the silence. You lower your expectations little by little, until one day you realize something hard to admit. Your presence has become background noise in someone else's life. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. But here's something deeper. Not just attachment to people, but attachment to being seen by them. The need to be valued, appreciated, acknowledged. And when that need isn't met, especially by those we care for deeply, it creates a subtle ache. It doesn't scream, it simmers. You begin to question your worth, not because it has lessened, but because it's being mirrored back to you as invisible. But the truth is, your worth isn't defined by how loudly others respond to your presence. It's defined by how quietly you hold on to your own light, even when no one seems to notice. When you constantly give to people who don't reciprocate, you unintentionally teach them that your energy comes without effort. And that's the danger. What's freely given can become easily taken for granted. Buddha reminded us to protect our energy the same way we protect our bodies. If you wouldn't let someone harm your physical self repeatedly, why allow it to happen emotionally? It's not unkind to pull back. It's not petty to grow distant. It's self-respect, and it's necessary. So when your efforts start to feel unnoticed, pause. Don't chase. Don't perform. Don't beg for validation in spaces that treat you like an afterthought. Instead, let your silence speak, because silence has a way of creating space for truth to rise. When you remove your presence, two things can happen. People either recognize your absence and step forward, or they continue as if you were never there. And both outcomes are your clarity. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, let's call him Arjun. He was the one everyone leaned on, always checking in, remembering birthdays, showing up for celebrations and hardships alike. But over time, he realized something. When he stopped initiating, the silence grew loud. Days turned into weeks. Nobody checked in unless he did. He wasn't being seen, he was being used. So without drama or confrontation, he stopped. Just silence. At first no one noticed, but eventually the ones who truly valued him reached out, and the rest? They faded away. Arjun didn't lose anything. He just discovered who was truly with him and who was only there out of habit. Buddhism isn't just about sitting in meditation. It's about how we carry ourselves in relationships. It's about knowing when to engage and when to withdraw, not out of punishment, but out of peace. You deserve to be around people who notice your light without needing to lose it first. And if that means choosing silence, so be it. Sometimes the loudest proof of your value comes the moment you stop speaking and simply walk away. Some people don't actually want to understand you. They just want to see if they can unsettle you. They throw little comments masked in sarcasm, test your patience with passive-aggressive jabs, or stir conflict in subtle ways that seem harmless on the surface, but hit deeply when you least expect it. You've probably walked away from an interaction wondering, was that intentional? And then you replay the moment again and again, trying to make sense of it. But here's something the Buddha taught. Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. That includes being unmoved by those who deliberately try to provoke a reaction from you. The truth is, provocation is a tool used by people who lack peace within themselves. When someone is calm and centered, they have no need to poke at others. But when they feel small, unheard, or envious, they may try to control others by disrupting their emotional balance. And the most effective way to do that? Trigger your reaction. Because once you respond, once you flinch or raise your voice or even justify yourself, they know they've succeeded. Your calm energy just got replaced by their chaos. This is why mastering your response is one of the highest forms of inner strength. It doesn't mean you don't feel the sting or recognize the game. It means you choose not to participate in it. Buddhism teaches that reactivity chains us to suffering. Every time we let someone pull us into their storm, we lose the clarity of our own mind. But when you hold your ground, not in aggression, but in stillness, you protect your peace and refuse to carry someone else's emotional baggage. Let me tell you something that took me a long time to learn. Not everything deserves a response. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every jab needs to be corrected. Silence, when chosen with intention, is a mirror. It reflects back to the other person exactly who they are, without you ever needing to say a word. And often, that's more powerful than any speech you could give. When you remain calm in the face of provocation, it's like handing the other person a mirror they didn't ask for. They see themselves, their neediness, their spite, and that reflection is often more uncomfortable than any defense you could have mounted. There's a kind of spiritual discipline in this too. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness, not just of breath, but of speech. He encouraged us to ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Before speaking. And when provoked, the answer to all three is often no. Responding might be true, yes, but is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it wise? Most of the time, it's not. Responding can feed the fire. Silence starves it. And when you choose silence, not the silent treatment to punish, but the silence of presence, you reclaim control over yourself. You stop giving people access to your emotions just because they threw bait your way. You become what Buddhism calls equanimous, calm, centered, and unaffected by highs and lows. That's not emotional numbness, that's emotional wisdom. Have you ever noticed how some people only start to recognize your value after you've gone quiet? It's like they don't truly hear you until your voice is no longer in the room. And by the time they realize what they lost, it's already too late. That silence, the one they once overlooked, suddenly becomes deafening. But here's what makes it powerful. You didn't use it to punish them. You used it to protect yourself. You didn't retreat because you were weak. You walked away because you finally honored your own worth. And in the eyes of the Buddha, that's not just self-respect, that's awakening. People get used to your presence, to your kindness, to your constant checking in, your support, your understanding. And slowly, without even realizing it, they stop valuing it. They stop asking how you're doing. They stop showing up for you the way you've always shown up for them. It starts with one missed message, then a forgotten call. Eventually, you realize you're always the one reaching out, and if you stopped, the connection would disappear entirely. The Buddha taught that attachment leads to suffering, and often we're not just attached to people, we're attached to being needed. But that attachment can blind us to the truth. Not everyone you care about will care back in the same way. There's a moment, a quiet internal shift when you stop trying. You don't make a big scene. You don't send a long message or explain why you're pulling back. You just do. And that's where your power returns. Because silence, when chosen with clarity, is a boundary. It's a statement that says, I will not beg to be seen. I will not fight to be appreciated. And I will not shrink myself to stay in spaces that can't hold me. This is where karma begins its work, not with revenge, but with reflection. Because when someone loses access to your energy, your presence, your light, that absence becomes its own kind of mirror. Buddhist teachings remind us that impermanence is a law of nature. Everything changes, people change, relationships shift, and not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Sometimes people are only meant to teach you a lesson about self-worth, about letting go, about how deeply you've been ignoring your own needs. So when someone finally realizes what they had and comes back with apologies, promises, or guilt, it doesn't always mean they've changed. Sometimes it just means they miss the version of you who tolerated what you no longer accept. And this is where self-mastery comes in. As Epictetus said, and the Buddha echoed in his own way, freedom begins when you master yourself, not the world around you. That means resisting the urge to go back just because someone finally sees your value. It means allowing them to feel the weight of your absence without rushing to soften it. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to offer closure to someone who closed their heart to you when it mattered. You let silence be the consequence. You let karma do the teaching. Because at the end of the day, your worth was never lost, it was just overlooked, and now it's protected, not with walls, but with wisdom, not with anger, but with distance. You gave your time, your heart, your effort. If someone didn't see it then, it's not your job to remind them now. Let your peace be louder than your pain. Let your stillness speak for your healing, and let your absence echo in the spaces where your presence was once taken for granted. That's not bitterness, it's balance. That's not coldness, it's clarity. And that, my friend, is the silent strength Buddha taught us to carry. Sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. Not out of defeat, but out of deep, unwavering self-respect. When you stop explaining, chasing, or proving, you start healing. And in that space of silence, karma begins to speak for you. Thank you for being part of Buddhist journey, where stillness is strength and every step forward begins within. If this message resonated with you, stay with this energy. Watch the next video on your screen. It's waiting for you with more wisdom, more peace, and more truth.